enough to let us in on the norms that the project-based learning campus uses. And I like the phrase, share the air. So if you find yourself talking a lot, maybe hold off for a little bit until you notice that everyone else's that you can see has had as much time to speak as you have. Be helpful, kind, and be specific. Be hard on content and soft on people. Be present. Expect non-closure. Mr. Smith, could you clarify that for us?
Yeah, oftentimes when we're having a meeting, depending on the topic, they're usually multi-meeting conversations. And so they're big problems, big projects. So, when we come together, we just recognize we're not going to have all the answers by the time we're done.
All right. Yes, we are not going to solve all the world's problems tonight. Again, if you did want to continue speaking with me, just put your question with, say, I really want Julie to email me back about this. And also, you can send that to us. And if our panelist has agreed to have conversations after this event, we will forward your question out to them for them to respond. So assume positive intent as best as you can, and foster growth with yes and. Yes, I love that improv concept. I bet Andrew Henson knows a lot about that if you're doing comedy in LA, the yes and principle. Here are our panelists. We have the fabulous, we have Patrick Royal. And after I give my speech, I'm just doing a 2-minute intro, we might respond to my first opening question just in the order of this slide. But you can see that we have a wide variety of pathways and careers. We've got law enforcement, informatics, and psychology. Musical theater is what Marilyn's working towards. Emma's exploring environmental science and political science. Andrew's been working, pursuing his career in the entertainment business, comedy and writing. Elena is working with theater production, but in the pathway towards law school and civil rights litigation. Skylar, from what I've seen on your website, is exploring the world and being the change he wishes to see in anything from journalism to neuroscience and psychology. An amazing surfing photographer. And Adrian is hailing from Michigan when he joins us, and working at Michigan State University. So thank you for being here and spending your time with us tonight. This is a pilot project for us. We've never done anything like this before, and the people who are Andrew, Monica, and Laura and I, we are a new team as PTO board members. So I thought I'd just kick us off a little bit with this. John Lennon, it was also the 40th anniversary of his untimely passing, that life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And the Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, and I've got my little notes here, that the only constant in life is change. We can count on change, whether it's incremental or drastic, desired or dreaded, or even planned or even totally unexpected. We know something's going to change. As soon as we figure out our plan, it's going to change. It can be something we've worked diligently for, like to earn a high school diploma. It could be something that happens to us luckily, like a college scholarship to somewhere across the country. For me, it was a scholarship to NYU, Tisch School of the Arts. And then, as far as we're talking change, there often are circumstances beyond our control. For me, it was during the summer between sophomore and junior year of high school. I chose to spend a summer in Detroit and help my brother and his his wife, my sister-in-law, as she was going through chemotherapy. And I went back to NYU, but I returned the following summer as she continued her battle with pancreatic cancer and was hoping for a bone marrow transplant. So that battle was lost, and she died the month I would have graduated as a senior from NYU. And I never returned to NYU. And I do not regret that choice. It was a no-brainer. It was simply, it just felt right, like the right thing to do. And that kind of change of plans makes me who I am today. And tonight I wonder, is that the kind of change that our young panelists have faced in 2020? Yes and no. My challenge was more of a smaller sphere of a family-based crisis. But right now, what we're talking about is this larger generational crisis of 2020. And I compare it closer to World War II, right? When the US Armed Forces grew from 450,000 enlisted men and women in 1940 to 11 million 4 years later. That was like a huge change that happened everywhere to everyone. And so whether you're on the front lines or you're just staying out of harm's way, this is affecting everybody. And my question to our panelists is, have you had any of those no-brainer type questions this year? And what of those choices were maybe not planned, but simply felt like the right thing to do? And I can go back to sharing that these panels, and maybe we could just hear first for Patrick, if you want to answer that. And if not, you can easily just say pass, and you can swing back around after someone else might have inspired something that you wanted to say. Maybe 10 to 30 seconds on this one. Take it away.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely along the lines of unforeseen challenges and circumstances arising. This is kind of the story of human history. Things happen that no one was expecting, and we have to overcome and adapt and address the situation accordingly. I think that's definitely going to be the case for handling COVID in 2020, but also to have a plan throughout the rest of your life for. Things happen, some of them are bad, some of them are good. The key would just to be informed and make smart decisions that you yourself are accountable for.
Thank you. Rachel, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know for me personally, with the pandemic, my school basically gave me the option to come back onto campus, live in a dorm, or stay at, for me, it was staying at home living with my parents 3 hours away from my campus. And with all my classes virtual, I had the no-brainer decision to stay home. For me, that was the best decision. It was a little bit challenging to actually make that decision because I love being on campus. I had a great friend group. I loved it, exploring Seattle. So it was tough, but staying with my family and having that support system, and I'm getting to spend extra time with my parents before I inevitably move out and graduate and start my career. So that was my no-brainer decision.
Great, thank you. Marilyn.
In completely the opposite way of Rachel, my no-brainer decision was to completely stay away from my family. My mom is one of the most vulnerable people in the United States. She got a bone marrow transplant, and so she essentially has a one-year-old this immune system of a one-year-old that doesn't know how to respond to COVID. And since COVID is so deadly because of the immune response, it was a choice of either I go out and I go to college and I continue on my life, or I stay home and do not leave this cocoon. And for me, it was important to me that I continue to have my own space. That was not a no-brainer decision. In that one took quite a bit of thought and quite a bit of deliberation and thinking. But the no-brainer decision was that I wasn't going home for Thanksgiving, and I'm not going home for Christmas, and I'm not going to see my family until pretty much everyone is vaccinated.
Wow, that's a long time. How long will that be in total by the time you estimate?
I'm probably a year.
Wow. We'll come back to this. This gives me an idea, and I'm sure probably if anyone has other questions about this or questions for Marilyn, please put them in the chat and we will respond to them first come, first serve, or in order they were received. Thank you, Marilyn. Emma, how about you?
Yeah, hi. My no-brainer decision I graduated this past June from Camas High School. Obviously, graduating looked a lot different than anything I was expecting. But after that, over the summer, I was keeping track of COVID and watching as the numbers rose, knowing that I probably wouldn't have the option to come onto campus for my freshman year. And inevitably, my campus did close 2 weeks before I was supposed to move to Chicago. And I made my no-brainer decision was moving to Chicago anyways. I've been living alone in an apartment, doing my online studies from Chicago. And it was definitely a really big move for me, just leaving my family and jumping into living alone, not really having like any friends or like solid connections in the city. But I think it's definitely been a really formative experience for me, a lot different than I would have imagined a freshman year going, but it's pushed me into a new environment and I've really enjoyed it.
Julie, I believe you're muted.
Thank you. Andrew, thanks. How about you?
Yeah. So I graduated college in June into the pandemic.
Wow.
So I feel like I've kind of had mostly a lot of brainers, not a lot of no-brainers, actually. I think I'm
Tell
just
us more about
getting-
those.
Yeah, I think so I finished up school and it was like, okay, I'm in Los Angeles, where I went to school. I was like, okay, I need to find a job down here. It was kind of hard to do that with everything kind of closing down. So I got this job I really wasn't that happy with. So I decided to move home for a little bit, which wasn't really what I wanted to be doing. So then I decided to move back down to LA, which is where I am now. And I have a job that I'm much more happy with and kind of getting back to where I want to be. So I think my no-brainer would have been moving home for a little bit and taking that break, I guess. But that definitely took a little trial and error, I think. A kind of a series of tough decisions and kind of trying to figure it out, entering the job market in a pandemic after college. I think there weren't a lot of no-brainers for me. I think there's mostly been a lot of just kind of let's go for it. If it doesn't work, turn it around and let's try the other direction. When that doesn't work, let's swing and a miss sort of thing.
So more like if you're gonna fail, fail fast.
Yeah, and fail with people around you that are gonna be there no matter what,
Yes.
and will either go down with you or catch you when you go down. Those are kind of the two options. Yeah.
That social network is what buoys you.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a network, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Elena moved with her network to Portland.
Yeah. So I think basically my school didn't offer almost anyone housing for the fall semester, and I'm from New York City and go to school in New York City. And along with a few friends, we were kind of like, well, if we're trying to figure out some sort of housing situation anyways, and all of our school will be virtual, we kind of could do that from anywhere. And so it definitely was not a no-brainer decision, but a lot of thought and planning went into where and kind of how we would do it and the logistics of that. But we ultimately decided to move to Portland for the fall, and do school remotely from here, and kind of experience a new place, slash access to nature slash a different coast together. So that was kind of the decision that I made. I don't know if I'd classify it as a no-brainer either.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Skylar.
Yeah, so similar to Andrew, I've had a lot of very thoughtful decisions, like things that I've had to really consider. And were honestly like some of them were very mentally taxing for time. And I've also had some very obvious no-brainers. One of those was deciding not to go to school to go into college this year, because things were all going to be online, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to study yet. And having done Running Start, I was already like essentially 2 years into college and needing to decide my major. And since I didn't know what I wanted to do, I was just like not ready. I still had savings left over because I had to cut my original gap year short. And so, yeah, my no-brainer would have been deciding not to go into college straight away.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Adrian, do we have Adrian yet? No? Okay. Well, Lori, could you come on the screen and read to us a question that's in the chat?
I'll come on the screen, but we don't have any questions yet. So you want to
All
start?
right.
Yeah.
Well, then I will.
No, we do have questions.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Then I'm looking at the wrong chat. Sorry.
Well, I'll read it.
Thank you, Monica.
Excuse my accent, okay? What was your, Elena, mock trial case? Did you enjoy it? Who were you?
Oh, that's funny. I mean, that was like junior and senior year of high school, so that was like 4 years ago. I don't really remember, but I was a fake lawyer, which has kind of was my first exposure to law and sort of helped me gear mentally towards law school, or introduced me to like that's something that I'm interested in, which has followed through to this day.
Thank you. And I was talking with Marilyn for a while about routines, and maybe we could go back into that a little bit, because you say you've had to be away from your family for a year, which wasn't exactly what you were planning on, and you had to learn specific to COVID self-care routines. And I'm wondering if all of you, when you feel moved to speak about how has self-care, and I don't mean like just buying nice moisturizer, but like living your life with care for self, in either exercise, diet, financial, intellectual, social guidelines for yourself. And we'll start with Marilyn with that, and maybe hear more about that with an idea for the younger 6th, 7th, 8th, and high school students who might be listening right now as they start to move towards taking care of themselves more independently.
I mean, I think for first of all, establishing self-care as kind of like taking care of your needs as I think that is a very important distinction, because I think the self-care has been monetized and sort of commercialized in this way of like buying bath salts or something. And while that can, for some people, can be a form of self-care, it's not necessarily self-care inherently.
Yeah.
But I think the idea, for me, what's really important is establishing routines and making sure that I get up at the same time every morning, and that I go to bed at the same time every morning, and that I eat at the same times. I think the idea, for me, especially morning routines, because essentially what I try and do is you try and set yourself up for success for the day. And there are certain things that make you feel, or at least make me feel, like I am awake and that I am ready. One of those things is washing my face. You have to be like very, and it's important to be particular and strict with yourselves about this, in that in that deviation from the routine is occasionally fine. Like you don't beat yourself up for it, because that's
Right.
how life goes. And not necessarily a routine, adherence to a routine, like at 8 o'clock, at 8 o'clock exactly I do this, but around the idea of around that time. But the idea of being strict with yourself, and that not taking a nap during the middle of the day so that your sleep schedule doesn't get off, or doing the things that set yourself up for success and set yourself up for good mental health, and set yourself, and asking yourself, what are the things that get me in the place, that get me to do what I need to be able to do? What do I need to do to function at maximum efficiency, as if we're robots? But so
I know. Yeah, that's not robotic, but maximum efficiency is not a bad idea. I mean, that's how we get to be the change we wish to see in the world, right? To do that. Thank you. Anybody else with self-care realizations or?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
One thing is, in high school, and honestly, since I was like 6 years old, I was always in at least one sport, up through my junior year of high school. So this is my second year in college, so I had been away from regular exercise for a while. Like I had a couple like spurts of going to the gym here and there, but nothing incredibly consistent. Up until August, late August, I decided that my physical health is really important. And I remember my sophomore year of high school, my soccer coach told me, you know what, Rachel, in this off season, I want to make sure you're running, because like I know you love to study hard and you like to focus on your academics, but getting outside, getting that fresh air, getting that oxygen to your brain can be extremely helpful. Even if you feel like you have a big exam coming up and you feel like you don't have time to take a break, seriously take a break. It will help you. You will get a better grade instead of just sitting in your room just cramming for that test.
Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's something that I've been making sure I've done 6 days a week for the past like 3.5 months, and that's been huge for me.
Great.
Yeah, I'd have to say I'm pretty similar to that. Getting outside is huge for me, which is great, because the path that I took for most of this year has been pretty much outside all the time, chasing the sun so that I can get out of the rain and spend more time outside. I got surgery on my foot back in, I think, April, and had to basically sit inside for 3 months. And like that just took such a toll on my physical and mental well-being, that like coming out of that and going straight back into my outdoor activities was just like this massive realization of like how important that is for me. And I hear a lot of people say similar things, so I think it's something worth noting.
We've had a few questions come in. I don't know if you want to continue on this path, Julie.
Thanks, Lori.
Sure. We've got somebody who's interested in hearing how anybody has stayed connected with their friends, particularly with those that have chosen a different path from yourselves this year.
Patrick, did you want to respond to that?
I can respond to it. I also want to get in on what Rachel and Skylar were saying, but as far as staying in contact with friends, we live in a digital age. Zoom is a new phenomenon, primarily oriented towards school and academics, but through FaceTime, email, Also, where I'm situated, a lot of people have kind of stayed kind of geographically close in the Rogue Valley where Southern Oregon is. And so it allows us to get together right outside the city limits where we can all park our vehicles out and overlook, spend time together, but be nowhere near one another and still engage and participate in activities. As for what Rachel and Skylar were saying, I'm a firm believer in that establishing a routine, particularly outdoors when everything else is closed, it really is the only alternative for things to do with your family or for your kids, or if you're in middle school or high school and a group of you want to get together and go do something, but you have to be mindful of what you're doing and who's watching. It's like, go outside, which is what kids have been doing for centuries, and do what kids do. I'll leave it at that.
Yes. So we have staying connected through Zoom.
Yeah.
We've got going outside. And I think it was it Emma who said that one of the things that's really kept you strong is the high school friends? I forget who was saying.
I can speak a little bit to that. I don't remember if I said that specifically, but that's something I've struggled with is finding new ways to stay connected with my friends, because all of us are in very different parts of the country right now. And as far as, connecting over FaceTime or Zoom, that can be a little fatiguing after a while. So we've been sending each other letters through the mail, which has been really fun. Saving postcards is a hobby of mine, and I finally found a way to use them. And it's been super fun because it's not something any of us are used to doing because we used to all live so close to one another. But it's been a nice way to stay in touch.
What a great idea. We all love getting stuff in the mail.
Yeah, I just want to second that. That's something that a few of my high school or college friends who aren't here and I have done, or even if I'll see something that's like a dollar coin or postcard or something that reminds me of a friend, I'll send it to them and be like, thought of you. And I feel like that's a nice way of feeling close to someone without having to talk every day.
And it's tangible because so much of our lives are not tangible right now. It's digital, it's a pixel. So sending something somebody could hold. Marilyn, is your hand saying, go for it?
I just want to even elaborate on that. A lot of the ways that I've kept in touch with friends is I think the idea of a shared experience is so important. And that even necessarily yes, Zoom is important, but Zoom can also be very fatiguing. So things of sending your friends TikToks, that can be very those little small things to be I thought of this and I thought you would find it funny. Or things like watching TV shows with friends, or at the same time, you can have conversations over the phone about the TV show so that you're not necessarily running out of topics, because it can get a little boring after a while in terms of if nothing's happening in anyone's lives. So the idea of, first of all, having these shared experiences and the idea of being able to share something with someone else and be able to discuss it, and that's a way to spending quality time. And you don't necessarily need to even see people's faces to do that. You can just phone call or text. Just send them the idea of just sending someone that made them think of you, and so that it's a shared experience.
I wish I had done that with a lot of my high school friends as I moved off. And I didn't keep in touch that way. Which is one of these things that I think we have Lauren Barton asked a question. What do you wish you'd known or done in high school to prepare you? Which is kind of like coulda, woulda, shoulda. But if you could have a little magic wand, or in a sense, give advice to some of the younger people, is there a general activity or choice or skill you could have learned, or tool you could have gathered by your side to prepare you? Is there something that you wish you could have done more? Go for it, Andrew.
I think I would tell myself that it's okay. It's gonna be okay is what I would tell myself, because I think I spent a lot of time in high school trying to just like do everything right. I was just like hyper focused on doing a lot of different things correctly at a lot of different times. I was just like a lot to be around. You all would have been like, okay, tone it down just like 900%. And then, but I think,
Not
and I
me.
think a lot of that translates into the college process. And I think I would, I don't know if this applies to my current situation as a post grad, but let's hop over as though I'm still in college. I would tell myself that like I think that while people fit in well at different places, so many different post high school journeys are such well fits for so many different people. So whether or not that's community college or a trade school or a 4-year school or some combo of all three, or not going to school or going to some school or not. I just think like I would have told myself that, or a gap year and then like whatever. I think that I would have told myself to give myself permission to be okay, like taking a journey and letting myself grow like with life. Because I think that there's a lot of pressure to immediately know our entire life journey upon graduating from high school, even though we're surrounded by people who tell us that it's not. Like we have people all the time who are like, don't worry, you don't need to know what to do. But then the next second people are like, so what are you gonna do after you graduate? So I think I would just say, it's okay to not know what you want to do, but it's also every journey is so valid and so okay, and will prepare you in an incredible way that is right for you for this world. Yeah, so
Thank you.
yeah.
Andrew hit the nail on the head. I'm not gonna lie. If if there was one thing that I could tell my younger self from high school, and that was that you can have the best plan made in the world, but you have to be ready at a moment's notice to throw it away if you realize it's not going to work. I was nominated twice to go to the Naval Academy and didn't end up making it. And here I was for 3 years, kind of in the dark, going, what am I going to do with my life? And it was like, I always wanted to do this. How do I do that? So I ended up coming to SOU, 30 minutes from where I grew up. And now I'm pursuing an active duty scholarship through the ROTC program to do the things that I wanted to do. I found a different way to do it that I didn't even consider for all of my childhood. So you don't know all the different opportunities that are out there. You have to be willing to try something that you have doubts about beforehand.
Yeah,
It
I
sounds
could
like,
kind of,
yeah, go ahead.
okay. Like Angie mentioned that a lot of people, like, you don't have to have a perfect idea of what you want to do going out of school, but then everyone's asking you like, oh, what do you want to do? What major do you want to get in? I experienced that a lot because I was like, back in my sophomore year, I decided that I was taking a gap year and I like stuck to that plan. But pretty much all of my friends who went straight into college and most of the people I talk to are like, yeah, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just went into college because that was the thing to do. And I'm really grateful that I decided to take a gap year, because even though I may be further from understanding what I want to do than I was at the beginning, I've learned a lot of valuable lessons, and I don't feel like I'm behind or whatever in the slightest. Granted, I did do Running Start, and so I graduated with an associate's degree, but that's kind of a moot point in some cases, depending on what I end up doing. But yeah, like the pressure to understand what you want to do straight out of high school is, I think, a little bit absurd. Like, you're so young, and there's just like so many people who have no idea what they want to do and feel forced to go straight into college. So I'm an advocate for taking a gap year if you feel the urge to do so and have the opportunity to do so.
And it sounds like you're an advocate for Running Start because that's what gives you that cushion. You know you already
Definitely.
have a degree, so the pressure's off of you a little bit, Skylar.
Yeah, I think Running Start is an amazing program. I really enjoyed it. It was a great fit for me. It definitely forces a little bit more responsibility on you than normal high school would. But yeah, being able to graduate with an associate's and not be in a lot of debt for it is pretty nice, for sure.
Thank you.
We've got another
Just-
question. Okay, Elena, did you want to say something?
I was just gonna say, like, keeping that open-mindedness even within college is also great. Like, I actually transferred colleges, unrelated to COVID, like, after my freshman year, because I realized that what I had thought I wanted out of my college experience changed between kind of the beginning of senior year and the end of freshman year. And so just keeping an open mind about that as well was really, I think, important because that wasn't something that I heard a lot of people talk about. And it was a great decision.
How was the transfer process for you?
For me, it was really great. I think I kind of was able to identify more what I was looking for out of college, which was, I really thrive in urban environments. I really thrive on a politically active campus. I really want this program and that program. And I didn't really know that coming out of senior year. And so having a year somewhere where I was like, this isn't the right fit or the right size, or kind of like this number of factors didn't really align with what I needed. And being able to recognize that and then kind of seek out schools that more reflected it was
Great.
very meaningful.
Thank you for elaborating on that.
Oh,
Marilyn.
I just want to, there are this is a little bit of practical advice. In terms of transferring, I had a friend who transferred and it wasn't necessarily a great experience. I think and while she transferred the school is better for her. What happened is I think making sure that there's enough programming for transfers in terms of and how exactly the social life works on campus, in that she transferred to UMass Amherst from Bennington, which is two very, very different vibes of schools. And a lot of social life around campus is on UMass Amherst is centered around sororities. And so it's very difficult to make friends if you are not in a sorority or you do not make those friends freshman year. So there are a bunch of transfers who are all in the same dorm. That was very sad, cinder block dorm, looks like a prison, and where they're all just not talking to each other. So I think also taking that into account with your transfer is very, very important. As well as something I tell my high school self is that I would tell myself both that I was allergic to gluten and dairy, and that it's okay to need medication. And because I have diagnosed depression, I have Prozac, 40 milligrams. I'm getting a redosage, and there is no shame in needing assistance, especially with mental illnesses are very much stigmatized.
Yeah.
And it's simply it's a chemical imbalance in the brain that can be exacerbated with trauma. It can be exacerbated by a number of many things. And it's okay to get therapy, and it's okay to need help regulating yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I tell my younger self. Also, repopping everything everyone else said about just forming your own path and stuff.
Right. All that stuff. But yeah, then there are so many different ways to get that mental health. There's groups, there's a therapist, there's psychotherapy, there's counseling from your religious community. And that I think asking for help is a huge sign of maturity. Seems like you are good at that and you were able to do that. Thank you.
Are we ready to move to another question?
Yes, please.
What are the different ways that you are engaging the world, exploring careers than you had ever expected? What's kind of hitting you now in that area?
I'd say I've been exploring a lot of my interests through Google. When I do that, a lot of my time is spent kind of just doing the things that I already knew I enjoyed. But when I do think about the future, I often will like Google essentially free textbooks for subjects that I'm interested in, and I'll just start reading them. And if I can actually get through a chapter or two without like wanting to go to sleep, then I will be kind of empowered to further explore that topic, because I'm like, oh, okay, I can like get into this and I enjoy this instead of just being like a fleeting interest. Not having access to academic resources that I would if I was on a college campus or even on a high school campus, that has been kind of my biggest tool, is just being able to like look for free material and kind of make the most of what I have to see if things interest me before I sign up to actually get into a major.
Mm-hmm. You like using Google as your public library.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
reading a ton of books. I like reading. And so like if there's a subject that I'm interested in, like some sort of political theory or something like that, I'll just go buy that book off Powell's website or something, and read it. So
Thank you. Emma.
Hi. I've been trying to take advantage of the opportunities that my campus offers, especially virtually, because they're, as far as like career services goes, they're not getting too many people coming in during COVID, but even outside of that, a lot of people forget to take advantage of those sorts of things. And it can be a really important experience just to sit down with somebody and talk through potential options, just knowing what some of my passions were in high school, and where I see them going and what I'm doing now that I find enjoyment in. Even just finding like volunteer opportunities that I think may have something in common with a career that I want to pursue. In Chicago, I've been like volunteering with a farmer's market, which is outside. I'm pursuing my degree in environmental science. So it's just little things that connect with the path that I see myself going down. That's been really nice.
I took a similar path to what Emma did, and an internship came up, I think, in the later part of 2019 to work with federal law enforcement. I've been there for almost a little over a year and a half now, and I've done things that I never would have had the opportunity to learn. And it was never really in my wheelhouse to kind of look at law enforcement as a potential career. But after having done this, it actually complements with the military very nicely, and there may be a potential for crossover later on in my career. But it was a fluke instance for the opportunity for the internship, so kind of got my stars aligned.
That sounds a little bit also like what Andrew was saying, like open your definition of should a little bit to widen what you've been telling yourself you should be doing or the path you should be on, in order to be open to those amazing opportunities that might fall on, those unexpected changes that might come your way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. Sorry.
Thumbs up.
I just started talking. I don't know why I started talking. I'm so
Well,
sorry.
I mentioned your name.
Yeah.
I was reincorporating back into what you talked about before. Like, you know, if you tell yourself not to be so strict with yourself about what you should, like doing all the right things.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. Yes, that connects. I think one way that I lately have been engaging with the world, I think, is just reaching back to resources that you already have. So I think looking around at, I mean, for me, it was college, but I think for you all, it could be your teachers, parents, family members, religious institutions, coaches, I don't know, whoever that may be. But for me, it was just like, you all probably aren't on LinkedIn, but like for me, it was LinkedIn. And I just like reached out through my alumni network, and you just kind of email professors, and I could reach out to Mr. Smith and I could say, hey, Mr. Smith, do you know a person who knows this person who knows this person? And he could say, nope, but I know this person who knows this person. And I could say, great, I know this person who might know this. And it's just a matter of like, so I think that's one way to engage, is just you basically just kind of start asking whoever you can, and just building a professional network. That's a different kind of note, but that's one way I've been engaging with the world, and a way you can use school and college in particular as a resource is kind of reaching out to your peers and professors as a resource for your career. Sorry.
No, I love that idea of a social network digitally, and also Emma's building social networks in person in the farmers market, and that every interaction we have with people around us is like a ripple in the pond, and you're like, every connection you have with a group or an association is like one more thread in your net, right? And we keep weaving that.
The one that the follow-up maybe to Patrick and anybody who's working now is, are you working virtually or in person, your internships?
As far as my internship goes, the actual officers where I'm working will telecommute in. One person will be in the office at a time. Of course, the way this is set up, it's very bizarre. We have a very, very small office, and we're a very, very small team. So as an intern, I go in and I get files, and I actually bring the files back. Or, sorry, I'm getting confused between a different job I had. But telecommunication is what all the officers are doing. I might go in and log into the systems and put files together and store things properly, just to update the hard copy system. But it's been changing a lot sporadically, just because federal law enforcement operates by different procedures than local law enforcement does. So a governor might say that, oh, we're going to be suspending these types of activities in this department, and that goes through the chain of command. But federal law enforcement operates differently.
Restate that question one more time, Lori.
The last question, or the one that just came through the chat?
A new one.
A new question, sure. Or the last one was just, if any of you are working jobs, are you working
Right.
virtually? I could, because
Is Rachel?
Is Rachel?
Is Rachel doing? Are you doing a pod?
Yeah, I am working with a group of students locally, a group of 4 students, and I go over once a week and see what everyone's got going on. I help them with whatever assignments they need help with. I look over the work that we're doing. And one thing that we found really important is that in these times, it's really hard to like just connect and play. Like you don't have, I know in middle school and high school you don't really have recess, but like you can't like talk to your buddies in the hallway, like you can't go over to someone's house after school. So just having those like little like maybe 5-10 minute breaks from schoolwork and just staring at your computer screen, maybe we'll play a short game or we'll just have a conversation. And I think that has been really valuable for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
This question, in what ways has your self-awareness increased during these unusual times?
In the education world, we call this wait time.
I can take a little bit of this on. I mean, the whole reason that I took a gap year was to kind of figure out, well, kind of learn more about me, myself, and what I wanted into the future. Because I felt like getting a degree and going into a career was kind of a big decision.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot about what I need to be happy and what I enjoy doing versus what I thought I might enjoy doing or thought I enjoyed doing, but ultimately like wasn't sustainable, or things that I didn't like ultimately after I'd experienced them. All of that kind of came down to just like going for it and engaging in these experiences. I mean, I was fortunate enough to get a lot of like international travel before COVID really hit, and that left me with like some really great memories, but also some like discoveries about myself that I like had not anticipated in the slightest. Yeah, so that's kind of how I've learned a little bit about myself and just like, yeah, grown a bit this year.
I think self-awareness also comes when you watch yourself meet a big challenge. And it's those moments when you say, wait, why am I feeling this? Wait, what is, you know, and when um, you open yourself up to feeling that uneasy disequilibrium, that uneasy feeling of, wait, this isn't right. This isn't how I usually feel. Have any of you had that feeling, that conversation with yourself? You're like, wait, this isn't the me I know. Yeah, Patrick, Skylar.
Absolutely. And a lot of that is a part of growing up. And I think a lot of middle school and high schoolers are beginning to kind of come into that, cross that threshold, and I don't know if it's that they aren't aware of how to respond or what it means, but having someone there to guide you or to tell you that, hey, you're going to feel doubtful, you're going to feel scared, you're not going to know what's going to happen, and it's going to be okay. You're figuring those things out, and that's normal. Whatever you decide for your life is your responsibility. You have time to figure it out, and there are tools available for you to help figure it out.
Well said.
Yeah, I think time when I my sorry, I'm rereading the question. When my self-awareness increased was when I met the job market and when I watched all of my friends who graduated into coronavirus kind of meet this job market. And we all kind of found that there were no jobs available for us, or there were very few jobs available, especially in LA, we were all just kind of applying for jobs that were non existent, which was pretty wild. And so I was working as a cart cleaner at a Vons grocery store, which was a really interesting experience during a quarantine. As someone who has horrible anxiety, would not recommend. If you have anxiety, do not clean grocery carts during a pandemic. Choose another profession. If anyway, but I think you come to realize that what you need to thrive mentally, physically, and economically, and how to balance those in order to thrive, and where to place yourself in order to be that person. So that's kind of the awareness that I gained, is I was like, okay, so here my mental health, not so good. Economic health, or economically, was never that great because I'm in LA and it was never gonna be that great. So let's just put that out of the question. But better. So, but you just kind of learn to navigate the world differently, I think, when you're faced with these challenges. And one of the biggest challenges I've seen is all of my friends and I kind of hitting this wall of not having availability of jobs. And as they start to open, I think we're all seeing a shift, sort of. But there was definitely this moment of, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now that we're done with this? What's going on? And I think we all kind of learned to balance mental health, physical health, and economic well-being, and where to place ourselves in the world in order for all three of those to balance, and for us to thrive at a level that we need to thrive at. And everyone has to do different things differently in order for that to take place.
Thank you. Mr. Smith has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, and this can just be a short answer, but when you think back to your high school experience, what types of activities or experiences do you feel like really helped you prepare for college or for this particular situation? I'll just leave it at that.
While you're thinking, I just wanted to let our panelists know that Mr. Smith is the principal of both of the schools.
I mean, I already.
Oh, look at those guns. You can tell. That's a principal's guns right there. This might be our last question. If we can all, as we're rounding up towards the 8 o'clock hour.
I feel like I've been talking a lot. I want to give the floor to someone else if they'd like to answer first. I'll break the ice. Probably what prepared me the most, not only for college, but also as far as my potential career course and my pathway that I've chosen, is really wrestling. I enjoyed cross country and I ran that through middle school, but to be a successful wrestler, you have to maintain a certain weight class. And when you're in high school and you're growing and you want to eat food, you kind of have to withhold eating food. It's not a good practice, but I've had to do it. And by putting yourself under that stress and that duress and the physical labor and the sleepless hours, studying late at night just because you had late practice, it really helped prepare me for studying late here, but also realizing that my mind and my body can take more demand than what I originally thought.
Yes.
So the stress and duress of that has now crossed over to college, it's helped me tremendously, even though I got all C's this term. Don't tell my mom. But I mean, it's helped develop me into not a carefree, but more genuine person who doesn't take things too seriously, but takes them the right amount of seriousness. And even when I'm not in a good mood or hungry or miserable, I'm still a pleasure to be around. At least I think so. So
Definitely. We think you are. But it seems like wrestling prepared you in a few ways, among them being tougher, being able to tell yourself, I can handle this. Yeah. Emma.
Just real quick, something that looking back on my high school experience, any things that I pursued that I find have gave me a lot more responsibility than I thought I was able to handle was definitely a formative experience that has helped me today. I mean, I was in the magnet program, I did running start, I studied abroad my junior year, and all of those things were programs or experiences that were definitely a little intimidating at first, even throughout. But I mean, looking back, those were probably the highlights of my time in high school, and I learned so many lessons along the way that have definitely transferred over to college.
Thank you.
I would also like to quickly add, oh, sorry, Marilyn, did I cut you off?
No, you didn't. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Just being involved, just in general, like doing clubs, doing sports, that's where I made my deepest connections and met my closest friends, because you spend time outside of the classroom, you really get to know people.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend doing that. And also, similar to Emma and Skylar, like taking those AP courses, that ended up being the best fit for me. And that not only saved me buckets of money, because AP exams, while they are expensive, they are so much cheaper than college courses. And they also give you those skills, so that transition to college isn't as dramatic, as difficult. So I would also, if it's not a good fit for everyone, but if that's a good fit for you, I would maybe challenge you to try one or two and see how it works for you, and then kind of go from there.
Marilyn.
One of the things that I'm grateful that I did in college and that or in high school for college is that I went to a prep school, which is not necessarily necessary, but in terms of the idea of like accelerated learning, I think one of the great things that you can do to prepare yourself for college is to really focus on your reading level and to get your reading comprehension up. And that's admittedly a bit of that's not how usually people think about it. But in terms of reading really difficult passages and being able to understand them and search for the context clues with them and search and be able to just get to the point where it's really difficult, because there was a college class that I took that was really, really interesting, that we had to read papers from the 1800s and from the 1700s. We read, I think there was a distinction between the ideas of political formations and political governments, and the idea of the monarchy being a the idea of government being a consenting contract between the governed and the government. So it's those sort of like really wordy documents. They're really a pain to get through, but they make reading standard modern academic articles a breeze. So much easier. Yeah, as well as just one advice for anyone who's here: don't punish yourself. Just don't do it. That's something. Just sorry, this is a little bit tangent. I'm sorry. I disagree with Patrick. Don't
3 square meals a day. Don't starve yourself.
Don't starve yourself. Eat 3 square meals a day. Doing those self-care things are really important. And yes, it making sure you get enough sleep. I know it's really easy to feel the need to God, I'm struggling to find words. It's really easy to find the need to either to punish yourself by getting less sleep, to feel like you have control of your life through controlling your intake of food, and controlling and depriving yourself can give yourself a sense of control when you feel out of control. However, that's not necessarily the best way to go about it.
Find balance.
Right.
I agree
Find
with you.
balance. Find that
Yeah.
3 balance. And
Academically pushing yourself. I think one of the things that I did that was really good is I wrote and directed a musical in junior year. And that has led to me writing now a full-length musical that will be directed by one of my friends. So we're gonna do that. Hopefully, knock on wood, that we're gonna be able to perform it in person.
Elena, any things that you did in high school that prepared you for the challenges you see now, or activities or pursuits?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. I feel like keeping I try to keep an open mind in terms of high school activities, and tried not to limit it to things that I thought what I thought going into high school would directly correspond to the career path I had in mind, because I feel like one thing I realized over the course of high school and college is I just don't know. I didn't know. And so using high school as a time of exposure more than anything was really beneficial to me. So I tried to do theater, even though I thought probably I just personally wouldn't end up pursuing it after school, though that's kind of maybe changing. And then I did mock trial, or I did different volunteer opportunities, and I kind of was involved in my Temple youth group, just a number of things that all I thought were enriching in different ways. And I cannot second the getting enough sleep part enough. And I also can't, people haven't said this, but I think really making time for friends and for social connection is incredibly important. Yeah, that's something that I think can fall to the wayside if you're very serious about academics in school. But I've always said has to be a priority.
I think also I think it's important. Sorry, I'm just gonna to elaborate and on what Elena said. I think we started out this discussion with the idea of self-care and viewing time with your friends as self-care, as something that you do to take care of yourself, to function at maximum efficiency or whatever. So I think that's just something that's so essential to humans. We need human contact, and it's not wrong to want it, and it's something very important to make time for.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. We are so lucky. I feel so lucky to have been a part of this, because I've been out of college for decades now, but just hearing these words of advice still ring true for me. And the idea, many of the things that we've talked about, mindset, balance, social connection, open-mindedness. These are timeless and common human drops of wisdom. So thanks so much for being here this evening. And wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thanks, Shelley Ross, our counselor, for helping us shape this event. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Andra, our PTO president, parents, and everyone for spreading the word. And I'll leave it at that. Wonderful.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
All right, everybody. Go hang out with your friends.
Thank you.
And get some sleep.
Thank you.
Get some sleep.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.